Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Capitalist Corner. I'm your host, Mark Pellegrino, and also the chairman of the American Capitalist Party, along with my co-host and vice chair of the American Capitalist Party, Michael Liebowitz, who also hosts his own show, The Rational Egoist, which you should be watching after you like and subscribe to this station and share it on your social media. Greg Lewis says this is episode 93 under construction, my friend. So thank God somebody is keeping track, because I think we lost it around episode 40 or so. We decided, fuck this, we can't do this.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of absurd that between the two of us, we couldn't keep track of the number of episodes. But hey, we can't keep track of episodes, but you can trust us to give you the full breakdown of global politics.
Global politics from a capitalist perspective, even though, full disclaimer, we do not represent the positions of the American Capitalist Party, simply our own opinions, which sometimes happen to intersect with the American Capitalist Party, at which time we'll let you know when that's the case. Michael, any news on the rational egoist front?
Absolutely. I did an interview with Tom Shattuck. Tom Shattuck was a host of the Tom Shattuck Show here in Connecticut on TIC 1080 for a number of years. He's now the host of his own podcast, two of them, Burn Barrel and the Shot of Shattuck Show. You actually appeared on the Shot of Shattuck Show, and he and I had a great talk about the state of the news, the state of talk radio, politics. It was really fun. He's a great communicator, real fun guy. So everybody should go check that out. And while they're at it, they should look up Shattuck and check out the wonderful interview that he did with you.
Yes, indeed. That should be posted to X. If it's not, someone give me a shout out, and I will try with my boomer adjacent skills to get that reposted. It was a fun interview. Of course, there was a great deal of drama. As everybody knows, it was interrupted by a reaction to a rabies shot from my beautiful and amazing angel of a dog, who I love very much, Frankie.
I have a great idea.
Yes.
Ann M says, so what's the big celebration plan for episode 100? Hear me out.
Yes.
Hear me out.
Okay.
Both us and everybody in the chat, I think we all dye our hair bright red.
Yes, I cannot, because I have to work.
Because why?
And my hair is going to be dyed another color other than the one that it actually is naturally, which is blonde, ash blonde in particular. And not red, although it has been dyed red on multiple occasions, like the last thing I did, the Murdoch murders. They stupidly dyed it red. They were supposed to match it to a mullet piece that they were going to put in my hair, and rather than match the piece to my hair first, they dyed my hair first before matching it. Oh my God, I love you. My wife just bought me a cup of coffee that said, "Real men play with their wieners. That is the cup." I love you, dear. You're awesome. And she's busy working on her new film that is going to be amazing, because she's an amazing writer. Amazing.
Are you going to be in it?
Oh, you're damn right I am. You're damn right I am.
Awesome.
So, all right, I wanted to start off with a bit of news from Gaza that you sent me. This is what I love about you. You send me things that I particularly like. It's not necessarily your field, but it's certainly my field of interest. Douglas Murray, I guess, had another interview with Piers Morgan. Piers Morgan is just all over the place on this issue. One minute he's pro-Gaza, and the next minute he's pro-Israel and understands the terror of October 7th, but can't seem to wrap his mind around actually defeating Hamas in the way that they need to be defeated. And Douglas Murray left him speechless because Piers Morgan started the monologue off saying that basically Israel's responsible for the fact that there is no ceasefire happening now. It's Israel that is the problem, not Hamas. When, of course, it's Hamas that has turned down 17 ceasefire agreements. It is Hamas that is setting up conditions that are impossible for Israel to abide by if they want to continue to live in safety and harmony with the Palestinian people in Gaza. Namely, Hamas wants a withdrawal of all IDF troops from the area before they even consider talking. They're not even talking about returning hostages dead and alive before that. And there's implicit the idea that Hamas will remain in political and military control of Gaza. This is an impossibility. Now, Douglas Murray's response was an amazing 3-minute takedown of Piers's position, which basically showed that Hamas is the problem. Okay, Piers Morgan, like every other pragmatist out there, thinks you can compromise with evil. You cannot. One of the great contributions that Ayn Rand made to ethics is the understanding that when good compromises with bad, bad wins. And in this case, I asked the question on social media in a repost: how can you compromise with a people or a government that wants you dead? There really is no compromise. When they're unwavering in the pursuit of your death, your only option is to utterly and totally defeat them. That's not the fault of the Israelis. That is Hamas and their acolytes who refuse to budge on this. So look, there can be no compromise. The surrender of Hamas has to be unconditional. The conditions under which Gaza comes under the control either of the international community or of Israel again, or of the Palestinian people to have a free state. The main condition is Hamas has to go. And their ideology of expansionism and imperialism into the Israeli state and the takeover of the Israeli state has to go. Those are off the table. Those are non-starters. So I just wish the more fundamental concept of compromise, was made a little bit more explicit. Did that bother you a little bit, Michael? Because I feel like you can compromise with people when you have basic principles in alignment with each other and you just differ with respect to degree. But when your principles are completely divergent, there can't be a compromise.
Well, I agree. First of all, did you happen? Well, I know you did because you reposted it. Somebody, I don't know who it was, actually posed a question to Grok that said in the past, and I can't remember the exact question, but when Israel has withdrawn or Israel has ceased hostilities, what has been the result? And every time the result is attacks against Israel go up, right? So,
and the number was exponential. Like it was in the neighborhood of somewhere from 271 attacks to 1,700 attacks.
Yeah, it was. I believe, especially after Gaza. I mean, after they withdrew from Gaza in 06.
That's exactly it.
The thing that kind of irks me whenever these discussions are had, like when I watch, for instance, and we're going to talk about him in a little while, Dave Smith, when they get into these debates, or the other day, for instance, somebody posted how much different would the last 25 years have been if Tucker Carlson was allowed to interview Osama bin Laden. And the thing is that I said, well, in what way? And the answers that came about, well, we'd be getting their side. No, you'd be getting what they wanted you to hear, is what you would be getting. But people don't seem to discuss any longer the role of Islam in this beef that they have over there in Israel. That the problem is, and they'll point out, well, there were periods when the Jews and the Muslims got along. Yes, when the Muslims were in control, when they allowed Jews and Christians to live, underneath them, but not as the, primary religion in the area.
I wouldn't say that forced conversions or paying a jizya tax or even destroying synagogues and churches at will was getting along. It was certainly
no. I'm talking about in the Middle Ages, Mark.
Me too. I'm talking about Muslim conquest and the Turkish.
Jews and Christians did exist with some peace under them when the
but it's second class citizens.
Yeah, that's what I mean. They were perfectly willing to allow that in those circumstances. But you can't, no matter what your opinion is on this, and I don't favor U.S. aid going to anybody, including Israel. But nevertheless, you cannot have this conversation and just ignore the role of Islam. The idea that they want to have a one world caliphate governed by Sharia law. And, if they act as if the Jews just weren't there, this would be Shangri-La. But in Iraq, Saddam Hussein kept them, under his iron fist. But then Saddam Hussein was, they went to war with Iran. You have in Pakistan, they've got the problems in India. Within Afghanistan, you had the Northern Alliance, the Taliban, then ISIS and Al Qaeda. They had some problems.
Let's not forget that Islamic expansion from the 7th century into the 16th century extended across Southern Asia, Eastern and Central Europe, into Western Europe, into the Levant, and into North Africa. If you want to talk about an anti-colonial movement, it's Israel that's the anti-colonial movement.
And, yeah, they don't want you as a member of the of the. I once tried to convert years and years ago when yes, and they actually tried to dissuade you. they try to talk you out of it, not talk you into it. And this is not, not all, but most religions have been into that sort of thing. It's not just saying, oh, look at Israel. I mean, look at Islam, because the Christians, of course, took part in the Crusades, the Inquisition. But the fact of the matter is, at this point in time, there is a problem with Islamic extremists, of which Hamas are, right? So unless you're willing to address that, I don't see how you can have a real conversation about this entire situation. But yet they don't.
And might I also add that the first, I guess the largest victim of Islamic extremists are Muslims, peaceful Muslims themselves. So it's not as if the Muslims, the 75% or 65% of the population of Muslims who happen to be modern and adjust to secular life don't have an interest in putting down these Islamic extremists. They are a danger to everyone. So I agree. This conversation has to be had within the Muslim community. And there are some people like the Imam of Peace. I don't know if you follow him. He's an imam from Iran, I believe. One of the most amazing reformists out there in the world, who has the cashews to really, really confront Islamicism, which is a very bold thing to do, because these Islamicists are serious about killing people. Look what they did to Salman Rushdie. I mean, he had a fatwa issued against him, in the 90s, and it was 25 years later when some fanatic attacked him at a meeting and poked his eye out with a knife. I mean, these people are seriously violent, seriously pathological, and it exists on a fairly large scale. I mean, for us, 25% of a population is small, but 25% of 1 billion people is the size of the United States of America. Now, hold on, my cat keeps opening the door. I have to.
We always have these issues with your pets. The pets are running the house.
That's indeed true.
But now you're leaving me over here by myself.
I apologize.
Well, your apologies accepted. You know, I broke my glasses. I'm wicked pissed. I sat on my glasses the other day, so now I've got to go and get new frames. Luckily, I kept the lenses are intact. But last night I had to drive. Well, I didn't have to, but I chose to drive because Diana, she didn't want to drive, so I drove. But then it occurred to me it was a bad rainstorm, and I'm just thinking maybe having the blind guy drive in the rainstorm is not the the best choice. But so I've got to go today when we get out of here, and I got to go get new frames. The problem is I got a flat tire. I took it to get it fixed the other day, and now I went and looked, and it's flat already again. So I evidently have to get a new tire, but that's not helping me right now. So I've got broken glasses, flat tire. That's the gist of my diatribe while Mark was gone, but now he's back, so we can get at it.
I'm sorry about that. Flat tires and broken glasses do suck. Manu says something I think is true. I'd like to address it, even though it doesn't have to do with a lot of our political discussion today. She says, it's not philosophy, but I see a lot of objectivists treating Rand as a deity. And of course, I think there's a tendency to do that with super intelligent, charismatic people who start movements, particularly philosophical movements, to idealize them to the degree that they don't quite deserve. I mean, most of us, I think you and I, can see Ayn Rand as a genius who nonetheless had some very, very human faults and failings and was short-sighted in some ways and shouldn't be treated as a deity, but as a person deserving of respect as an intellectual giant. And I remember trying to give some advice to a particular group of people who are working on a Rand project. And one of the pieces of advice was, let's have a hologram of her where she gets to lead people on a tour through her life, through this museum piece, which I thought was great. But the person said to me, we don't want her, Ayn Rand is not a tour guide. And I thought, why? Why not? They thought it was denigrating to make her the tour guide of her own life. Now, there are they're called living historians on Monticello, for example. There's a guy named Bill Barker who plays the part of Thomas Jefferson and actually leads people on tours and talks about Thomas Jefferson's life as Thomas Jefferson. I think that's brilliant. I think that's amazing. And they basically cosplay these characters, but this would have been a virtual Ayn Rand who would have also at the end of the tour answered any philosophical questions anybody had, which I thought was great. And Paul Gay was originally writing some of this stuff. Paul Gay, for anybody who doesn't know him, is an objectivist who wrote the great movie Liar, Liar. He is an extremely...
He wrote Liar, Liar?
Yes, he did. He's an
with Jim Carrey?
Yes.
Come on.
Yes. No.
I'm friends with him on Facebook.
He's an extremely funny, witty man with a philosophy degree. And he was putting humor into this this event, and it was rejected. I think objectivists need to embrace humor. It is one way of disarming the bad guys.
Here's some information for you.
Yes. Rand was a tour guide in Russia. Wow. Thank you.
That's awesome.
That is a piece of information that I might have forgotten. James, where did you get that from? Because it's got to be from.
What do you mean? Where did you get it from?
Like what book? What like? Because
the guy had access to the archives, dude. What?
Okay, but maybe I've read some. Maybe those archives were published, or were they? Was it an unpublished archive?
Oh, I don't know. But you said it like where? Like it was a big mystery. The guy had access to the things. I'm just really impressed with myself right now because I'm wicked. Evidently,
what else is new?
I'm wicked celebrity adjacent. Like I've got Paul Gay, the guy who, it's in Rand's biographical interviews. Ayn Rand fan club chimed in to say it's known. Well, I didn't know it. I'm very sorry. But what I do know is I got Mark Pellegrino now on the show. I got this Paul Gay is a fake Facebook friend of mine.
Whom we should have on the show, by the way.
We should. Well, that's where you got to.
So if I'll see if I can get Paul. I can get Paul.
Yeah, you got to get him on here. And you know, I'm interviewing local celebrities with Tom Shattuck. I'm like,
listen, Michael, Allie's saying, Michael, get Paul Gay on the show. She's telling you.
Yeah, but I'm not. That's what they don't understand. I'm not the guy. You're the guy.
No, you are the guy for a lot of guys. You're the guy for like.
Don't ever use that sentence again.
Okay, you know what I mean. You're the guy.
Yeah, but you can't say to me.
Talk shows, all the libertarian thinkers out there. You have connections with you.
I can get those guys, but the celebrity crowd are your people. But you never tell me that I'm the guy for all the guys. Please, don't. We don't need that.
It's okay to be the guy for all the guys. It's okay. Don't be frightened of it. Embrace it, my friend. So
you embrace it.
I embrace it. I do embrace it. Listen,
why don't we embrace you being the guy for all the guys?
I'm perfectly fine with being the guy for all the guys. So Reason magazine is John Stossel's writing 2 pieces for Reason magazine. Unfortunately, I don't think I saw the first one unless you gave this to me and I've simply forgotten it. But this is the second wave against Mr. Mamdani, who looks like he has an 80% likelihood of becoming the next mayor of New York City. Now, this guy is an unabashed socialist. 25 to 30 years ago, it would have been impossible for a mainstream politician to call himself a socialist, even though there were lots of Democrats that were socialist.
What about Bernie, Mark?
I said 25 to 30 years ago, before Bernie became a thing on the national stage.
No. Bernie was a socialist senator from Vermont since the 90s, since 88.
Oh, was he since 88?
I think so.
Yeah, but he called himself a Democrat.
No, he didn't. Everyone knew he was a socialist. When I took my American government course, it must have been 2002 or 2003. They mentioned Bernie Sanders, the avowed socialist.
I knew that he was a mayoral. I knew that he was a mayor, but I didn't know that he became that senator until much later. Because
I'm going to find out right now.
That's good. Well, let me put it this way then. Let me go back a little further. In the 70s, 80s, in the 60s, and the 50s, let's just say, it would have been really, really difficult for an avowed socialist to occupy an office in Congress, or especially in the executive branch. Nowadays, they say it with not only impunity, but with pride. And Mamdani is one of these people who comes from very wealthy parents, lives in a rent-controlled space in Manhattan, and benefits greatly from privilege by the way, having grown up in privilege and being educated in African studies, which I think is his father's specialty. So he's part of that elite limousine leftist group who wants to impose all kinds of socialist regimes on the people of New York. For example, fast and free subways and metros. So fast and free buses, fast and free trains, forgetting that originally the subways were privately built, privately owned, and were taken over in 1939 when there was a fare hike from 5 cents to 7 cents. The promise of the city by taking over the subway was that they would never raise fares again. Of course, a few years later, it was 10 cents, and now it's over $2. It's over $2 to ride the subway, and they still are in bad condition. Apparently, according to Stossel here.
Okay, just so you know, Persephone is telling you she will pay you to back up. Now, we've been through this. Bernie, I was wrong. He was not a senator. He was a senator in 2006. He was in the House of Representatives since 1990.
Since 1990. Okay.
He was in the House of Representatives. Yes.
Okay, so he wasn't a state. He wasn't in the state house. Was he in Vermont? It wasn't the state.
He was the mayor in Burlington.
And
then he was a member of the United States House of Representatives, and then he was a mentor. He was a member of the U.S. Senate starting in 2006. Persephone says, "Thank you, Mark.
Hey, Manu is right.
Glasses."
Manu is right. No, it's not about glasses. I get passionate and I get right up in the face. I get right up in your grill.
All right.
I forget.
No, it's okay, but we got to bring, we know you, maybe a memory lapse, but we bring it to you. Well, Persephone did, actually. I just
Thank you, Persephone, for reminding me. But I wanted to continue with my rant, because apparently it costs $1 million plus to make every single subway train, right? And the city, listen, this just astounded me. The city had promised to build a subway train in 1939. And today, it's still not built, even though money is still being spent on it.
That was sick. When I read that, I was just like, oh, my goodness.
Wasn't that insane? Well,
yes.
That sort of harkens back to the pet project of California, which is a high-speed rail that was originally supposed to go from Los Angeles to San Francisco. Then it got pushed back from Los Angeles to Bakersfield. I don't know who wants to end a destination in Bakersfield. Nobody that I know. Bakersfield is the third rung of hell, for crying out loud. But then it keeps getting pushed back. They've already spent somewhere in the neighborhood of $26 billion on this thing, and not a single rail has been laid yet. And this is what Mamdani thinks is going to give us better transportation in New York City. Good luck. He also wants to nationalize grocery stores. And so he's going to push out the private industries there. He's going to push out the mom and pop stores. The bodegas are all going to go away. Probably even the big chain stores will go away if they're competing with state stores, which will, of course, cause...
I don't know. I got the
shortages.
Yeah, shortages.
It's going to be nothing. Every state store that has ever come down the pike in any socialized economy always has empty shelves. That's the one thing that they all share with each other. He also wants rent freezes. Michael, what do you think price controls will do to housing in a market that already has such huge demand for housing and such little supply? Do you think
you're going to get less availability? Shortages, like you just said, you're going to have housing shortages.
So if this guy is able to pass anything that he wants, then he will ruin New York City. Already they're experiencing a jettison of brain power, experiencing a jettison of money. People are hightailing it to Florida. They're going to Connecticut. They're going to Tennessee. They're going everywhere but New York City. If he gets in and is able to pass this legislation, business is going to leave. Now, New York City has been the financial hub of the United States forever. Right? For as long as we can remember, it was New York City. Chicago was competitive there for a long time during the 19th century. But it's New York City. It doesn't have to be that way, folks. Silicon Valley doesn't have to remain in Silicon Valley. As long as onerous controls and restraints are put on these businessmen, as Trump wants to do. Trump does indeed want to control everything about the tech industry, as well as the socialists, they don't have to remain in California. They will go somewhere else where they're less harassed. The money people, Wall Street doesn't have to remain on Wall Street, folks. It can go somewhere else and likely will. Or if they stay, we'll have that wonderful kind of class system that's happening here in California, where the only people who can afford to stay here are the rich and the subsidized poor, and the middle class just leaves and goes to Idaho or Texas or Florida or Maine or New Hampshire or anywhere else where the taxes are less onerous than they are today. So Stossel makes a great point. Also, there was who was it? Was it George Will in the article who said, we need to have this. Every 20 years, we should have a socialist who actually gets into office and implements their program so that everybody could see how bad they are and how they fail. But then Stossel makes the great point. They've always done this. It's like every time they get in office, they fail. I mean, just look at California. It's a tanking economy. We are in the red because of the programs of Gavin Newsom. New York is dying on the vine.
And think about in California, right? Just think about it. They're, like you said, they're in the red. They've got all you rich people out there, right? An abundance of sports teams, all kinds of stuff, all kinds of money that should be, keeping them afloat. And it still doesn't work. Now, Allie Beard is trying to really start an argument with me here, Mark. I have to point this out because she says she disagrees. She says rent going up isn't helping. Lots of empty complexes because people can't afford them. Do we need to make a big thing? We do.
I think we need to talk to Ali about why that's happening. You go ahead. You start first.
First of all, it's difficult because I don't know exactly the circumstances what she's talking about. So I have to speak generally. Yes. Generally speaking. Now, the problem is nothing exists in a vacuum, right? So in these places that she's talking about, we have empty buildings. I don't know, for instance, what are the zoning laws? What is preventing market entry? So in a normal free market, what would happen is if there were people that I just got distracted. Sorry. If there's people that can't afford apartments at a certain rate, then there's a market for somebody else to come in and build that would fill that need and would rent to them for lesser amounts of money. But with zoning exclusions and things of that nature, what happens is it's just not worth it. We also don't know the situation of these empty buildings. Maybe they're not wanting to rent. Maybe they're not up to code. Who knows? What we do know is that if the government steps in and says this is the max that you could, the max you can charge, less people build these things, but more people want them because they're cheap. That's just economics. You know what I mean?
It is.
It's just economics.
Largely, Ali, it's local regulations, local zoning laws that prevent entrepreneurs from coming in and building new spaces. And those zoning laws are onerous, believe it or not. For example, we're experiencing something similar right now in the Palisades, where, of course, the quick rebuilding and of the area that has been burned down is now stalling because of all this red tape and zoning laws, where they're not allowing duplexes and apartment complexes to go up that'll house more people. So here you have a housing crisis caused by, of course, all kinds of, caused initially by a fire, started because of bad regulation, and now people unable to fill that vacuum because more regulations is preventing them from putting duplexes up. They can't put duplexes or multifamily dwellings up in this area. The answer is why? Well, it's the not in my backyard laws that people get passed by their city councils that enable these kinds of things to happen to their benefit, but to the detriment of those people who can't find affordable housing. And it's highly likely that something like that exists in your state. That's usually the problem, although Michael's right. We don't know the particulars. I mean, economic issues are usually a sort of a bunch of different issues, kind of a confluence of different issues that all sort of spiral into an effect. And so sometimes it's difficult to isolate one or two. But those are usually the problems: the restraint of trade, price controls, and
the government printing press. Let's not forget.
The government press as well is destroying your dollar as we speak. So, Ali, whatever money you're able to save is less valuable tomorrow than it is today. So, one of the reasons they love this low interest rate and flooding the market with credit, flooding the market with money, is the government gets to pay a cheaper dollar on the debt. So they like that. It's a con for them, but you will not be encouraged to save. Saving, which used to be the foundation of investment in new businesses, now you can't. You can't save. You're not encouraged to save because your money's worth less tomorrow, so you have to spend it today. And so it winds up being a snowball effect of very, very, very bad consequences that wind up in shortages and eventually hyperinflation, which the Misesians have been talking about for a long time. But the modern monetary theorists are saying, see, you're wrong. It hasn't happened yet, but it will.
And they're dumb anyways. But I got a question. Have you ever tried CBD?
Yes.
My doctor told me that CBD might help with the sleep. It doesn't.
Oh, no?
No.
All right.
I tried it. It's not helping.
You might want to try microdosing with psilocybin.
I don't think I can even buy that here.
Let me see.
Does that help? That helps with the sleep, though? Ayn Rand fan club says indica. Yeah, Ayn Rand fan club. Yes, you're absolutely correct. Once a week, I allow myself 5 milligrams of indica to sleep, and it does help. The problem is, I think that if I start to take that, then my tolerance is going to go up. And then I'm just going to need more and more, and I don't want that. I don't want to be spending all my money on pot.
Let me recommend a company called Neora. Neora Chews. This is not by any means an endorsement. I don't want to get us in trouble. This is not necessarily the opinion of the American Capitalist Party, but it is mine. Neora Wellness Chews. They have chews that for energy, and they have chews for sleep. I'll give you the information on it. It's a combination of herbs, melatonin, and mushrooms that actually have been a lifesaver to me. So,
all right, well, we'll figure it out.
You might want to try that.
Alan Thomas says it's random. It really isn't, because what happens here, by this time of the day, I'm real tired. So I'm like, it's taking a lot of effort to keep myself up. And so that's what came to my head. And sometimes when you're doing talk, you just have to say what's on your mind.
I agree. And you know what? And this is helpful to everybody too, because I think a lot of people have issues sleeping, especially today. I think people feel a lot of stress. Trump doesn't make people feel better about the way things are going. For anybody who's a little bit in the know and not brainwashed or in love with the Trump image, most of us feel a little bit anxious and unsure as to what our future will be like, and so sleep becomes a difficult thing, and you might need sleep aids. And we don't want you to become addicted to sleeping pills, but to natural remedies. And there are some good natural remedies out there. As Katie Ellis says, what is sleep? There's just too many people I know out there who are having real difficulty sleeping. Guys, it's also important to reset your circadian rhythms. So when you get up in the morning, go outside and stay around in the sunlight, if you can, for at least 10 minutes. That will start to reset your brain as well. But that could be a topic for the wellness portion of our podcast when we talk about the intersection of philosophy and psychology, folks.
Alan Thomas says, I do not want him to say what's on his mind.
Alan?
Feel free.
Here's what I want you to do, Alan. Win the election. It's in a few days. That's what we care.
You can tell us about that. That would be wonderful.
Yes, we want to hear good news that you've beaten the elites, the moneyed elites over there in Alabama, and the Capitalist Party has won its first election. And I have confidence in you that that is going to be the case, even with those crazy bums over there. Look, you sent me another great article about the midterm elections, This was sort of all over the place. So it wound up making no predictions at all, but just sort of saying, well, historically speaking, the power and party loses the midterm elections, and the percentages look like they're going to the independents are going to be the deciding factor here. In this case, they're not really on Trump's side, but then later he sort of said they are on Trump's side. So we're not sure how this is going to go. Do you have any? He did hinge it on some very important factors, though, that I think will have an influence on the elections. But here's a counterpoint that I want to throw at you. Of course, inflation is something that everybody is worried about. So if people don't see prices coming down, if people start seeing the effects of the tariffs raising prices everywhere, if he replaces Powell with somebody else who lowers interest rates and makes and expands credit and starts printing money, and people start seeing inflation rising, that will redound against him for sure. People haven't necessarily felt the effects of that yet, but it's already there in a depressed job numbers, folks. The numbers are already starting to reflect a potential recession in the future, even though they're not reporting that on Fox News, and they're not really reporting it anywhere else. That is the case. And of course, he's firing people who in the Bureau of Labor Statistics who are actually saying, well, labor numbers are going down. This is not necessarily reflective of very good policy. So if those numbers continue to redound against Trump, then there is the possibility that he could lose those houses in the Senate and or House, especially in the House. However, I want to throw this by you, Michael. The Democrats have become the party of insanity. I mean, Trump has done a successful job at capturing a narrative. And even though the left oftentimes is in the right when they're arguing for the rights of immigrants and for due process, they appear to be fighting for people who are criminal elements of society. The right has done a good job at marginalizing these folks. Additionally, they seem to be advocating for violence all the time. I can't see Maxine Waters on television without her saying, beat up people, start rebelling. I mean, literally calling for violence, which I think should be censorable. I think she should have been censured years ago when she advocated for violence. But these people advocate for violence. And the most consistent wing of their party is socialist and unapologetically so. And that does not still sit well with the majority of the American population. So where do you think the midterms are going to go? I'm going to grab Frankie.
Okay, so I haven't got the slightest idea where the midterms are going to go. And that's one of the things that I found interesting about the article is that the guy wrote, this article and ultimately said nothing because there's too many unknowns. We don't know what's going to happen. We simply can't know what's going to happen. So it's, but pundits are going to pundit, I suppose. Scott Schiff over here as the Ayn Rand fan club is touting how wonderful the economy is. He believes these numbers evidently when the government says that the second quarter was 3% growth, we can believe those numbers. When they come out and say that the labor numbers suck, you can't believe those. But anyways, so I find it very interesting that people will do this and they pontificate and they make predictions about what's coming in the future, but they really have no idea. This guy has no idea. He could have just wrote that. I don't know what's going to happen, right? But there is something that I find interesting. Is historically, I think they said in 10 of the last 12, what's it called? The midterms, that the party out of power wins. The party who doesn't have the presidency wins. It was 12 out of 14, 10 out of 12, something like that.
Yeah.
But I find it interesting that we elect these people, not we, but you know what I mean? The country elects these people and then is so unhappy with the job they're doing. They vote in the opposite party. And normally the incumbent candidate, the president, ends up winning. So evidently when they vote the new guys in, they suck so bad that there's then a return to the old guy, and this goes on and on and on. But people don't seem to do what you recommend every day, is check your premises. Like, these are not good candidates. These are not good policies. And what I find exceptionally interesting, and this goes back to, what's his name, Mamdani from New York, is he bitches about how horrible the government's doing, and his solution is more government. And I used to come across this all the time in the big house when you'd be debating people and they would complain about government corruption. The government's corrupt. They do this wrong, that wrong. And then their solution is we need to give them more control over the economy, over healthcare. And it's just like, wait a second. You're telling me how horrible they are, but you want to increase their power. It's like, it makes you, I don't know. It's like I've said in the past, you fall down the rabbit hole, step through the looking glass and into Willy Wonka's chocolate factory. It's absolute madness.
One of the worst things about people, and I love people, but is the propensity.
Do you really?
I do.
In general?
In general, I do like people. I love people in general, as a matter of fact. But the propensity to want to have their cake and eat it too really bothers me. Because that means they're not living in reality. So they want the benefits that, forced government subsidies are able to accrue to them. They want to not work. They want that time where somebody else is laboring while they enjoy the fruits of that labor. But by the same token, they understand that these things, to some degree, are causing great general harm, and they want them to stop. But they just don't want the benefits to stop. Unfortunately, you can't have one without the other. The benefits have to stop. If you want the government to be less intrusive, you have to throw away what the so-called benefits that you are getting from the subsidization. You have to let them go, and that is what will free up the economy for real. So far, I don't see the Republicans doing that at all. They have lost the narrative. Whatever they were in the late 60s up to the 80s, and even in the 90s with the quote-unquote Republican Revolution and Newt Gingrich, they are no longer that party anymore. Just like they claim the Democrats are not the party of Roosevelt. Of course, they're more consistently the party of Roosevelt than they ever were. The Republican Party is not the party of constitutionalism anymore. The libertarian-esque elements that are within the party are very, very small and very uninfluential. It's the nationalist, socialist elements who now have the party reins at the moment, and the populists who have the party reins at the moment. And they have big mouthpieces like the moronic Tucker, and the less moronic and I think more articulate Charlie Kirk, who is winning minds and influencing people when he goes to these universities and has rational discussions with people, despite the fact that I don't like 60 or 70% of what he says. He's changing people's minds, and he's got the right idea because he started at the student level, right? His whole movement was about energizing the youthful base and energizing those people to vote Republican. And he's been doing a fairly good job at that. We need him as a capitalist party guy.
You have me. If someone would send me, if you send me to these colleges,
you would defeat Charlie Kirk wholehandedly.
Yeah. So, but then what do you mean we need him?
Okay, we need you. We need you to go out. All right, that's better. Now you sent me something from Twitter that was a Piers Morgan, Dave Smith thing, with Dave Smith saying all the snippet said was, they took it, you lost it, get over it, you're never going to get it back. I don't know what that was in relation to. Was it in relation to the West Bank?
No, I thought you would do a little bit more investigating into it.
I didn't have time.
Well, I sent that to you at like 5 o'clock this morning. That means it would have been.
It
would have been 2 o'clock for you.
Right. I'm sleeping at 2 o'clock in the morning, Michael.
You mean you're not just waiting awake for me to send you articles at random times in the morning?
I'm sleeping. I'm sleeping until 7 o'clock in the morning.
Okay, now you got my dogs wound up.
If I wake up any earlier, my wife will kill me. And she can kill me.
Okay.
All right. So I wake up at 7 o'clock in the morning,
and then Shattuck could sell the tape to TMZ.
That's true.
You see, it all works.
It all
works out for the best.
So what is he talking about exactly?
So this is when he had on the other hat where he's opposing Ukraine. So what he was talking about is the territory that Ukraine has lost. And he's saying that you've lost that territory. He took it. You're not getting it back. Deal with it. Right. And the hypocrisy that's being pointed out is, of course, that's not what he says to the Palestinians. When it comes to that was the point of the post, is that when it comes to that situation. He's constantly saying the Israelis need to go back to the pre-67 borders, giving back everything they got. I believe that during that war, they took Gaza, the Golan Heights, and the West Bank, if I'm not mistaken, in 67. So he wants Israel to give all the land back, but when it comes to Russia, he's saying, no, you have to just accept that they've taken it. And the point that's being made, and that was just one of the clips that I've seen everywhere, all over the place on X this morning, was that when it comes to totalitarians, he's saying let them keep land. But when it comes to democratic countries who took land during wars in which they were under attack, he wants them to give the land back. So that was the
isn't
that
that interesting that a quote unquote libertarian and a mouthpiece for the Libertarian Party and for the libertarian movement and for anarchism in general seems to be in support of totalitarian regimes over free states. Now, it's true that he makes no distinction between the two, really. I think he thinks states in general are totalitarian. Just by nature of the fact that they can tax makes them totalitarian. Do you think that in some way affects the fact that he makes these moral equivocations between the two or favors one over the other? Because I mean, there's sort of this agitprop thing going around, generated largely by Russian psyops. That of course Ukraine is filled with Nazis, and they harken back to the 30s when their leaders were allying with the Nazis to prevent the Soviets from busting in there. And I'm like, well, right now they're the free state. Right now, they are just trying to defend themselves against a Russian imperialist maniac who's trying to reconstitute the Soviet Union and will not stop at Ukraine if he is not stopped. But you're right. For people who don't know this, Gaza and the West Bank were occupied by Egypt and Jordan, respectively, from 1948 until 1967. Jordan did some things to help the Palestinian refugees. They allowed some of them to be citizens. They promptly ejected them in the 1970s when they went to war with the Palestinian people with the PLO, and the PLO had to run to Lebanon, where they, of course, agitated more trouble there for the people in Lebanon. But Gaza was under military law under the Egyptians, and they were held in camps by the Egyptians, under the control of the Egyptians. The Israeli government had no control over the West Bank and the Gaza Strip from 1948 to 1967. In fact, during that 19 years, Jordan passed an anti-Jewish law that forbade Jews from being anywhere in Jordan, from living anywhere in Jordan, from living anywhere in the West Bank, and they were prohibited from going to their most holy site, which is the Wailing Wall, the Western Wall. They were prohibited for 19 years from visiting the most holy site in Jerusalem for the Jews. Now, in 1967, they retook those areas. They occupied portions of those areas, and I say portions of those areas, but only up until a certain time, as buffer zones, because those areas were used from 48 to 67 as routes for Arab armies and violent militia groups to terrorize Israeli people. So they needed the buffer zones. They won them legitimately because the Arabs had made a war of aggression against them. They are not as many Arab enthusiasts and pro-Palestinian people claim, obligated to give that territory back. And though they are not obligated, they did. They gave Gaza back to the Gazans in 2005 and removed 8,000 settlers forcibly. They left their technology behind, which could have left Gazans in a much healthier place economically. The Gazans burned their technology to the ground and razed the Jewish homes. That's how much they hate the Jews. In the West Bank, they withdrew from the populated areas of the West Bank in 95. There's 3 sectors of the West Bank, and only one of them is largely protected by the IDF. One area is shared IDF and PA responsibility, and the vast majority of it is ruled by the Palestinian Authority. And Israel has promised on multiple peace process occasions to cede 96% of the land of the West Bank back. The only 4% that they want to keep are the highlands, the hills that are strategic locations and early warning systems for the Israeli people. That's it. That's all they want. Instead, it has become a social political morass for them, and has become a sticking point in negotiations because the Palestinians will not accept anything except the destruction of Israel. And they have made that very, very clear. So for Dave Smith to say this is just an affront to logic. It's an affront to honesty. It's an affront to integrity. It's an affront to freedom. It's an affront to the libertarian principles he supposedly stands for. It makes him a dirty, rotten, scummy, bad dude.
So you asked why he does this. There's so much that I think about this, and it starts with Rothbard, right? It was one said of Rothbard that if all the world became capitalist tomorrow, Rothbard would become a communist, because he was just contrarian. And I think that part of that has followed into the libertarian movement. There's also this paleo-libertarianism. A lot of that has to do with Rothbard as well. This strategy of being far right on cultural issues, but libertarian on the other issues. It's very strange, right? But then there's like this guy who talks about Dave is a Hoppian, and that's true as well. But I don't think that we can simply ignore the fact that taking these takes like Dave does has made him very popular. And, you know, audience capture is a real thing. And I actually talk about that with Tom Shattuck in the interview I just did with him. And Tom made it clear to me. He says, Michael, you could probably go out and make the most popular podcast. He said, if you came out tomorrow and said, you've seen the error of your ways and now you're going full MAGA, you would then have a huge audience. They would just flock to you. And I think that is the case in a lot of situations. Is people, obviously it's a choice to do it because it's not an instinctual thing, but I think it's like the drug addict, right? Where you start with a little bit and then next thing you know, you're copping a bundle of dope a day and you don't even know how it happened. And I think that the audience capture thing can happen in the same way, where you start tilting just a little bit to get the audience. Now, obviously, I'm not a mind reader. I can't know that that's what Dave is doing, but I don't think that can be ignored. Now, the last thing I want to say is somebody mentioned that not all ANCAPs are anti-Israel, and he mentions Walter Block. I like Walter Block a lot, just, in full disclosure, very, very nice guy. But Walter Block was kicked out of the Mises Institute because of his views on Israel. And the Mises Institute would be probably better called the Hoppe Institute, the Rothbard Hoppe Institute. So it is true that you could find your ANCAP. Jack Lloyd is another one who are not vehemently anti-Israel. But by and large, the ANCAPs and libertarians too are anti-Israel. And it comes back kind of to what Mark said earlier about the belief that any government is intrinsically evil. And when you think that, it becomes very difficult to distinguish between degrees. Whereas I wouldn't personally support Israel as a freedom country, but I certainly think it's the freest thing going in the Middle East. It certainly has a lot of Western Enlightenment ideals built into it. It's not the type of country that I would advocate, but it's certainly better than anything else out there. But in the mind of somebody who just sees, if you're a state, you're evil, you don't see those distinctions. My dogs won't shut up. They're driving me crazy right now.
Okay, I love it. It's music to my ears.
Okay, I know you may love it. I don't. We have 5 bitches, and they're all very, very noisy.
So I want to say something.
Well, I got it. One more thing I had to say, and
yeah.
I forgot what it was, but I want to remember because I want to say it. I want to get it out. And now, in the book, The Criminal Personality, and in Dr. Samanow's book, Inside the Criminal Mind, he talks about the continuum of criminality. And they talk about how when you go through the criminal thinking errors, that what happens is people look at them and say, well, I do this, and they don't understand the extremes that we're talking about. So you might say, well, everybody commits a crime. I've ran a stop sign. And then you equate the guy who ran the stop sign with somebody who commits murder because they both happen to be crimes. And I think that's what happens with libertarians a lot of times in relation to government, is they don't understand the distinction between Stalinist Russia and the United States.
James Valiant points something out that I think needs to be said. In the late 70s, Egypt got the Sinai back in its peace deal with Israel. Egypt did not want Gaza back. That is also true. It also demonstrates something about Israel's willingness to trade land for peace. At the time that Egypt attacked Israel in 73, Israel was surprised in the same way they were surprised by October 7th. It's not that they didn't have a dearth of intelligence. They knew something was happening, but they became so complacent and they thought they were undefeatable. They didn't think that Egypt would be able to do what it did, which was almost reach Tel Aviv. So when Israel counterattacked, it actually crossed into Egyptian territory and literally pointed a dagger at the heart of Cairo. That's what forced Sadat to stop fighting. And then when the peace negotiations happened, they traded the entire Sinai, removed Jewish settlers from the Sinai, which was oil rich, I might say. So for people who think that the Jews were capturing land, they're imperialists, they're trying to profit off their land, I wish that were the case. It's not. They gave up that territory entirely to Egypt, which is oil rich, and gave them a source of revenue, losing that source of revenue for themselves, and at the same time uprooting legitimate settlers in that area who shouldn't have been removed at all. They also did very similar things with Jordan, which also renounced its hold over the West Bank. So both Jordan and Egypt did not want to have anything to do with the Palestinian movement. I might say a nascent political movement that has all kinds of implications. If you consider yourself a Palestinian, it's not an ethnicity, it is a political movement. The political movement that calls for the annihilation of the Jewish state. That's why I would rather people in that region just simply call themselves Arabs, because that is what they are. I want to get to something real quick. We only have 3 minutes, but Florida labels a synthetic opioid 7-OH as Schedule 1 drug, which now means that this drug, which is a very potent painkiller, by the way, will be off the market for people who potentially need it. They're saying because it's been marketed in gummies and children are.
It's always the children. Always the children.
It was that way with flavored tobacco. It was that way.
Everything.
Everything.
It's everything.
Children, then the state can come in and take over the powers that really should be in the hands of parents, who should be more mindful of what their children are consuming. Even though they won't be perfect, they should be more mindful. But people who are in genuine pain, I have an 80-year-old friend who needs pain medication, and some of that pain medication has been rescheduled to Schedule 1 drugs. He can't get that stuff anymore, and he is in chronic pain. That is no way for a person to live. And making a policy based on a minority of the population that has an addiction problem and preventing a far larger portion of the population that needs pain medication to have a relatively sustainable life is an injustice practically unequaled here in the world. Additionally, this is now going to cause another epidemic of overdoses and impurities, because of course, who's going to take over the distribution of a product that is illegal, for which there is a market, but the cartels? What do you think about this craziness? This is happening in Florida, by the way.
Well, in Connecticut here, they've passed a law banning kratom, which is the substance from which this product in Florida is a derivative. And it's just absurd. And somebody on my Facebook page said, yeah, but children are getting it. We simply cannot be governed based on everything that's a risk to children. You just can't do it. It just doesn't work. And, you know, it was interesting to me that they said that it's a painkiller, but in the same breath, they say it has no medical use.
Yes. Well, that was crazy.
Yeah.
saw that.
So it has no medical use except for killing pain. But see, to me, once we get into that, it's not that I don't think they're valid points, but it kind of seeds the point that if it doesn't have a medical use, then they should be able to ban it. And I wouldn't say that. I don't care what use it has. If adults want to put that into their body, it's their business, not the state of Florida's. Now we got to get to the American, the capitalist thought of the day. But
Yes.
first, I have to address a very important question from one Gary Menard. He said, "Is it the official position of the American Capitalist Party that all Michael's dogs are bitches?" Well, in fact, Gary, it does not have to be the position of the American Capitalist Party because it is a metaphysical fact that the 5 dogs here are bitches. Every last one of them is a female. And that is the technical term for a female dog. And I tried to be nice today. I normally crate them when I do the show so that they just calm down. But today I said, you know what? I'm going to be nice and I'm going to leave them out. And you see how the gratitude that they show. You see how they pay me back.
They're actually singing your praises in the background.
No. They know I'm trying to do something and they want to be difficult.
Listen, before you get to the capitalist thought of the day, I want to address something the dangerous loaf of bread said here because I think it's important. He said, "Damn right, I'm in recovery, but when I needed freaking pain medicine for doctors refused it to me. I had to go buy it off the streets. I was incensed." Now that is where fentanyl issues come in and where people end up getting impure substances because they're in pain. They have no choice but to go to these other places if they want to live pain-free and have a quality of life that's better. And many of these drugs are laced with these dangerous fentanyl products. It's a problem caused by government regulation that can be stopped by releasing the government from the responsibility of human moral agency.
That's a nice way to put that, Mark. That's a nice euphemism from get your jack boot off my goddamn neck. We're going to release them from the responsibility.
Let me be free. The government is not responsible for your life. You are. So go ahead, Michael. What's the capitalist thought of the day?
Capitalist thought of the day is to remember Jesus's admonition or question of what will it profit a man if he loses his soul and gains the whole world. And that goes back to the discussion about Dave Smith and audience capture. What we try to do here at the Capitalist Corner is bring the best analysis that we can possibly be, and we do that analysis based on the truth as we judge that truth to be. We welcome disagreement from the audience. We think it's great, but anybody that happens to be doing a drive-by listen today, if you're looking for a show that's going to simply tell you what you want to hear, this definitely is not it. This is a place for rational discourse, for growth. We recognize as the host of the show, of course, that we can be wrong. And when we are wrong, we will promptly admit it, but not a second before we know it. And we are here to really provide good quality content. And I hope that we are doing it. So with that, I will turn it over to... What?
Yes, thank you. That was awesome. Yes, if you want a party of principle, folks, if you're sick and tired of the pragmatism of the left and the right, come to us. I know there are dissatisfied people on the left who are liberals who want to embrace true liberalism. Those are the principles that guide us. I know there are people on the right who want to embrace pure constitutionalism. That is the position that we hold here at the American Capitalist Party. You are welcome to abandon the two establishment parties and come to the place where you can find a real home where we will not compromise principles in order for pragmatic wins, because the principle wins the war, not just the battle. The pragmatic compromise wins the battle and loses the war. We want to win the war. So we will see you here tomorrow at 9 a.m. Pacific, 12 p.m. Eastern time. You've got 23 hours to check your premises. And if you're leaning towards liberalism, look at AmericanCapitalistParty.org. Donate and become a member, and like and subscribe to this station. Also share it on your social media so that the algorithms will like us, so that we can gain more members and so that we can make rugged individualism great again. All right. Thank you very much, folks. We will see you tomorrow. Peace.